with Glendora then?
Hi there everybody, how are you today? I am so happy because we are in East Hartford, Connecticut. We are at Wesley United Methodist Church and Pastor Reverend Roberta Williams is kind enough to tell us what she's going to tell the people on Sunday, and that's Luke 12:49.
Right. So we always think about Jesus being, you know, a guy who came to earth to talk about peace. But one of the things I'm going to read from Luke chapter 12:49 to 53, because at the end of his earthly ministry, he said, I didn't come to bring peace. He said, I've come to bring fire on the earth, and how I wish you were already kindled. I have a baptism to undergo, when he was speaking about the crucifixion, and how distressed I am until it was completed. Do you think I come to bring peace on earth? No, I tell you, I come to bring division. From now on, there will be 5 in a family, divided against each other, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3, father against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, and mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. So he kind of covered all the bases.
That is not peace.
Right. Now he would have to add, you know, ex-wife and your ex-husband, your first ex-husband, your second ex-husband. No, he'd have to add, but
Sorry about that.
In his world, he was saying that when you become a Christian, it's not a bed of roses. It doesn't mean that your life will be peaceful. And he was especially speaking to the disciples, because he knew that after he was crucified, life would get even tougher for them.
And it was.
So it reminded me of the story about a Baptist minister who went to South Carolina, and the first thing he preached against gambling. You know, we in Connecticut, we have 2 big casinos here, but in South Carolina they have a lot of horse racing. And so the church people didn't like it because they said a lot of members in our church make their living on horses. So the next week he preached about the evils of smoking, and then he was told, you know, they also make money on tobacco, and the third week he preached on drinking, and he found out that a major distillery was in the neighborhood. So somebody just cried out and said, well, why don't you preach about those godless communists? And he said, well, there's no communist government within 4,000 miles. And so the conclusion is that there are some sermons people don't want to hear. And when they challenge our own lifestyle, people don't want to hear it. So this lesson today is one of those sermons that people don't want to hear. They don't want to have to put their religion prior to their family. So that's one of the things.
And they don't want to be mother-in-law against daughter-in-law and all that. Yeah.
We hopefully try to make peace.
What are we going to do about it?
What are we going to do about it? Well, he said that the ministry of God had to be rained down from heaven. And there's another sermon illustration. A lot of people today are even more familiar with C.S. Lewis because some of his famous books have now been made into movies that were highly rated, Narnia. But C.S. Lewis was a professor in England.
Yep.
And he walked into a big fight going on, a debate in his class, about that they were debating that there was really no difference among world religions, and he said that the difference is that Christianity offers grace. It offers, and grace means a gift. When you give somebody a gift that they don't deserve.
No matter what.
Right. So that Jesus was the sacrifice, and God gave us the grace of counting his sacrifice for our sacrifice. So Christianity gives us unconditional love and acceptance.
Did C.S. Lewis say that, or did you say that?
C.S. Lewis believed that.
Yeah, I see. But I know something you can do, folks, about all this. You know, okay, you can go out and no matter what, you can give as much peace as you can possibly give. And then you will have peace.
What if you don't feel like giving peace? We talk
Come
about,
to me.
we talk about road rage,
I know.
and when it's hot, it's even road rage air.
But I want you to feel like giving peace because God has blessed us so richly. And God loves us.
Yeah. But I think that the challenge of being a Christian is that we go to the well of Jesus Christ when we don't feel very peaceful and we don't feel very forgiving. And that Christ can help us to take steps and actions.
Okay, tell us how to do it.
How to do it?
Go to Christ. Go
Well,
to
you have to
Christ.
pray a lot. You know, every family or every church, any organization, your office, there are always people who there are people who just rub each other the wrong way. They're in conflict. It may not be any, major opposition. They can be of the same religion.
They just
But, well, you really have to pray, and you have to hopefully hear the words of a higher calling. And sometimes you just have to let things go. Right?
Well, you do, yeah. Let's do that right now. Let's pray right now. Let's pray right now, the people at home and you and I. We pray for the peace of God and the happiness and the joy and the excitement and the love of God. Look how God loves us. Look at these beautiful flowers. Right?
Yes.
And then I think also you can sing a hymn. That makes you feel better.
If you know them. We're pretty much an unchurched society now
Well,
in the
here's
United States.
a good one. Breathe on us, breath of God. Fill us with life anew, that we may love as thou dost love, and do as thou wouldst do. Wouldn't you like to do that?
I did it along with you in silence.
And then, what's the next verse? Breathe on us, breath of God, so we shall never die, but live with thee the perfect life, through thine eternity.
Something like that.
Let's live the perfect life. Help us live the
Help
perfect
you,
life.
help you live the perfect
Help
life.
me live the perfect life.
Well, I think the first thing is to say that being a Christian is not an easy thing if you really want to be a Christian. That God calls us to be a Christian 24 hours a day. And God also calls us to share financially what we have.
Yes,
Share our homes.
I'm going to do that right now.
Share our physical things, that we have.
Yes.
And some people are able to share, like open up. I have a couple of friends in Boston who have opened up their large homes through the hospitality program to people who are very ill and they have to come to Boston for medical care.
Yes, on account of the
Right.
big hospitals in Boston.
Some people aren't able to do that, but they can write a check, or they can cook, or they can send a card. They can do something different. But in the passage today, Jesus talked about, in the 12th chapter, he wanted to tell the disciples tell the disciples that don't be afraid of people who will kill your body, because you'll be resurrected, and don't worry about your life. He said that he was coming to bring fire on earth, and it was an ancient belief of his people, the Jewish people, that God often would speak through fire. And we know in the Bible that Moses had a profound experience with the burning bush. There were lots of, when Bush was in office, there were many jokes, about the burning bush. I won't go into them.
Thanks.
But when Moses was tending his flock, he saw a burning bush, and then there was another symbol of fire. When the Hebrew people were wandering in the wilderness, God led them at night with a pillar of fire. Because there were no GPSs in those days, so they didn't know where to go, and God led them. And then when the church was being started after Jesus' resurrection, the day of Pentecost, the Bible in Acts tells us that tongues of fire danced on people. And Jesus said, I came to bring fire on earth. And he said that I will send my comforter to be with you. I'll never leave you alone. So that's a third experience that we have with fire.
Is that the same as Lo, I am with you always?
No, that's a joke about it flying in airplanes.
No.
Lo, I am with you always, it doesn't have to do anything with fire.
Isn't that Matthew 28?
Oh yes, it has to do with Jesus ascending to heaven.
Yeah, didn't he say that he told to the disciples to make disciples of the whole world?
All nations.
All
Yes.
nations, is that what he said?
Yes.
What Bible do you like? That first edition do you like?
I usually read the New Revised Standard.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
This, what do you think of this one? This is the New English Bible, and they were 13 years.
Well, I'll finish it saying about the Old Testament, and the New Testament uses fire as a metaphor, a way of talking about how God punishes and purifies and also strengthens the world. And in Jesus' day, they knew a lot about gold and how gold is made, that you have to get the rough ingredients out of gold before you get it, and you do that through heating. There are certain things in the world even today that you have to get the temperature up before you can get the good things out of it.
We did that the whole month of July, 100 degrees.
Right. And what did we get good out of it? Not much. We get high electricity bills. Those of us fortunate enough to have air conditioning. So there's a story I'd like to tell about somebody who felt the refining fire of God in his life. It was a regular suburban kid who used to get into a lot of trouble. His name was Billy, and by the time he was 18, he was doing hard time in a penitentiary, and a very forgiving judge said that he would get him out if he would volunteer for the Army. And so Billy was sent to Vietnam, as were many men in my generation. And unfortunately, he was assigned to the Graves unit, where he had to tag and ship the bodies of men who were killed in battle. So when he came back, he was in worse shape than when he went over. He was then, as many people were who faced those circumstances, he came home as an alcohol and drug addict. And one night he held up a liquor store in his hometown, which wasn't too bright, where he was known. And eventually he ended up going back to jail, and eventually he was sent to the Joliet prison in Illinois. And he said his years there were experienced as being burned alive at the stake. It was so horrible. So he said if he ever got out, he would never do it again. So finally, when he was let out, his first job was to be a church janitor, and he found a quarter in the vending machine of the soda machine, and he went up 2 flights of stairs to give it to the church treasurer.